Hey Quilties, it's Karen Marchetti, and this time on Dual Process, Jodi Robinson and I are working on a feathered star quilt. We both have an awesome idea for you, so grab your printable and we'll get started. Hey guys, it's Karen. So for my idea, it's a fully custom quilt, so there may be some tying on and tying off. I'm going to try and do it as continuous as possible. So, and I'm thinking I can get this and this and this done. So for the first section, I'm going to start right here. And I would have to use a ruler for this, so, or at least mark it ahead of time so I have an idea where I'm going. But I'm going to just draw an arc from here to here, and then arc back, arc to this one, and then stitch up here. And then we kind of do it in reverse to here, and then I'll get to here again. So from here I would definitely go back and ditch these, so just be careful where you have to backtrack on what's already been stitched. And then I will come up here and do some continuous curve, put my little feather element in there, and then just meander. And I'm aiming to get back over here. So meander all this open space. And you can use whatever fill you want. I'm just meandering. There's enough going on that the meander is sufficient for the quilting. So now I'm here. And we're going to kind of just repeat that in this smaller section. So again, we're aiming for here. To here. And back. To here, up to this corner, to the center, back out, over to here, again backtracking and ditching all those points to the star. Do our continuous curve in the border, and then fill with a meander. And then from here, repeating what we did in the opposite corner. Again, aiming for here. So it's kind of repetitive. Once you do one, you pretty much have it down. But I mean, if you need to mark the ones that you're aiming for, you can do that as well. Again, watching your backtracks, which mine on ink on this whiteboard aren't very good. But if you were stitching, you'd have a ruler and you would just backtrack them perfectly. So then again, filling with the meander. Until you get back to this corner. So now I'm going to stitch my border from this side and end up over here. I'm just going to go back. Okay, so the border is a loop and up. So it's just continuous curve with that little feather element in it. Whoops, I forgot one. And that happens in real life too. So if you do ever forget something, you can just easily tie off and go back and get it. And then I'll stop here. And then I'll roll the quilt. So this has to, this row is going to have several tie-offs because there's the center element, and then, so there's this element and then these two, right? So we're going to first do this section. So I'm here. I might as well have left my needle down so I can finish this border while I'm here. And then I'll tie off, and then I'll go back to doing that cross design right there and back, and then backtracking all those points, doing the continuous curve and then the fill. And again, it's much neater when it's being stitched, not drawn on a whiteboard. So I'll come over to this side over here, and I'll repeat that same thing. Like I said, this part is very repetitive. Do that stitch in the ditch, backtrack over all those points, continuous curve, do our fill, and then do the border while we're here, and then tie off. So for the center, you may have to, depending on the throat of your machine, adjust this a little bit. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to start here, and I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, and that's where I'm aiming for. Again, 1, 2, 3, aim for that one, 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 1, 2, 3, aim, 1, 2, 3, here, 1, 2, 3, and back out. It just works for me. If you wanted to stitch something else in there, you can. If you want to repeat a more linear star, you could do that as well, but I just like the way this looks. Okay. So from here, I'm going to come up and put some feathers in this open space. And then I'm going to travel, put a little loop there, put feathers in this space. Travel to here, another little loop, and that little loop it's just to this is to mimic out in the border, so there's cohesion in the quilt. It also helps to travel. Okay. Put our feathers over here. And you can do feathers however it is you're comfortable doing feathers. Travel to here, another little loop, more feathers. And you just do this until you get back to where you were. Up to here, last little loop, and then you can tie off. Okay, and so then I will do this last section, and then I'll bring you back at the end. Okay, so we're just finishing up that last corner, and there's the quilt. So it was fairly, I don't want to say simple, but there weren't a lot of tie-offs just in that center row. The other thing I wanted to mention is if you were doing this in 2 different colors, there would be way more tie-offs. So in that case, you would have done, let me see if I can switch to a highlighter. Okay, so you would have done this area first, and then this one, and then this one, and then tied off, rolled, did this section, this section, this section, rolled, did these last 3, and then you would change your thread color and do this section here in the center, and then do your entire border, outer border, last. So that's if you were doing it in 2 different colors. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope you try out one of your own.
Hi everyone, it's Jodi. So we're going to go ahead and be working on the feathered star quilt this time. And so for this version of a quilting plan, as you can see, I went ahead and marked some, just these would be basic markings. So we have some full circles because we're going to put wreaths if you saw the picture of the finished quilt. And then we'll have the half wreaths in the setting triangles. And we're going to do just some really pretty swirl designs. So we'll have, as opposed to doing perhaps like a feathered wreath, we're going to do a swirl wreath. It just makes it a little more open, little easier to execute. And then we're going to use swirls in the other areas of the quilt to kind of make it a nice cohesive design. So I'm going to assume this is wall hanging, and so I'm going to just make an assumption here, and that would be that I can reach about that far down. Well, maybe even to here, because that would be the block. So we can go ahead and stitch everything up there above that before we need to roll. So because, you know, if you have your quilt loaded and you're ready to go, I generally will start, I mean, you know, as far as I can reach, which we're going to, like I said, is about down to here. And I'm going to start with the border. And we're going to do just a nice, simple, continuous curve design. And what we're going to do is we're going to curve to here. And in the center, we'll put like a petal shape and then curve to that point. We do have these gray triangles, so we want to make sure that there's some quilting in there. So when I come to the tips of these, I'm just going to go ahead and put a little swirl in there. And then continue. Curve, petal, curve, swirl. And I'll just continue doing that around the border as far as I can reach. And you could mark the centers of these if you felt like you weren't going to be able to, you know, get them in the centers. And then because this outer triangle is 3 together, we're going to go ahead and just put a few more swirls. Put like 2 little ones and maybe a bigger one in the center before we continue on with the same design. The curve, the petal, curve, swirl. We'll just work our way along here. We're going to keep going. The same thing. Goes pretty quickly. And then remember again, in the corner we need to put a little more quilting, so we'll go ahead and put 3 swirls in here before we continue on. A couple more to go here. And then I probably want to go ahead and stop right here. And so I would probably go ahead and just tie off at this point. And then I'm going to go ahead and go into the center. And if you noticed from the finished picture of the quilt, we're going to add just some swirls in there. And so I'm going to go ahead and start right here in the center. And what we're going to do effectively is that we're going to add some quilting into these areas of the piecing, and then travel along this seam, which is going to allow it to be then stitched in the ditch as we go. So what we're going to do is start right at the point here. I'm going to add some swirls, and these can be any configuration that you want to use. Just enough so that it fills it up. And then the really nice thing with the swirls is that we can just backtrack out of there. And because we have, again, another little area, as we travel, I'm just going to throw a little loop in there, or swirl, I mean, and come to this point. And then in this point, again, we're going to do the same thing. Add the swirls. I mean, you might want more swirls, you might want less. As we travel, another curl, and then we're to where we need to be for the next set. And that little one up in there. Travel, adding another curl. I think this is a really pretty, very feminine look to it. And you can see how that's filling in the areas. It's not too dense. And then this will probably be the last one on this one. Echo out. And then I would probably go ahead and tie off at that point. And then because I'm right here already, I'm just going to go ahead in, and because I've marked the wreath, I'm just going to, start working my way around it. You can do the outside and then switch to the inside. I'm going to do it both sides at once, because when you do it that way, as you go, you're stitching that circle. So we don't really need to get a ruler or a template or anything to make that perfect circle. So it's kind of nice to get two things done at once. I'll just continue around here. It's a little more forgiving than feathers. Just work our way around here. Finishing up these last ones. And you see how that has then stitched the center. And so we'll stitch these other two, the top left and top right as well. And I will probably just do that right now because I'm already, on a roll doing those. So I'm going to go ahead and do those. And again, I'll do both sides at once. And those curls can be, if you like a nice tight curl on the end, that's entirely personal preference as to how you like yours to look. And see, as we came around, again, we stitched that center. Go ahead and do this next one. Like I said, you could do once like the outside and then the inside. That's again up to you. I think we all think a little bit differently, and if one way works better for you, that's totally fine. So as soon as we finish this, our next step is I'm going to go ahead and just go right into doing these half wreaths, and they're going to be done the same way. We have chalked the, almost did a feather there. I'm just going to follow along. Same as the full ones. Now our curls. Tie off, and then come down and do these two side ones. And what I always like to do is, these ones are moving clockwise, so I kind of envision these half ones as that part of that still in the same direction. So this one is going to go this way. And come over to this one. Okay, now at this point, the only thing we have left is the piecing, the half square triangles that we have around the outer edge. And we're going to do that with simple continuous curve. Because we use the continuous curve on the outer border, It just makes sense to do that. And you can start however you want. I like to start on the outside. So I'm going to go right here. Let's say I can reach, actually probably here. So I'm going to curve. And I think of it as going in and back out and travel. Travel. Ooh, that's some small little piecing. Travel, travel, and just keep going the whole way around here. And you don't need to worry too much if you miss one, because as we work our way back to close in the bottoms of each of these, you always have the opportunity to do any of the ones that you possibly have missed. And I say that because I do that quite often. That's why this is such a great design. It's kind of like a no-fail design. You can always fix it. Whoop. So again, we're going curving in and back, travel, travel, travel. And we're almost done with this one. Travel, travel. I went a little bit too far, but that's okay. So at this point, what we want to do is go back, work our way back, and we're closing in that bottom part with the other curve that we need. And we can pass this, the points, because we've already done all of those. And it's nice to use these same design elements in different places to kind of bring everything together, and then it makes a little more sense. Okay, so at this point, I would just go ahead. I'm going to need to advance my quilt. I mean, depending on the size, obviously, if you have a larger throat space, you may be able, depending on the size, to reach the entire thing, and you would just continue. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to repeat exactly what I did on the top part on the bottom. So that brings us to the end of this quilt. And of course, this quilt itself, depending on how you want the quilting to look, you may choose to perhaps go back and maybe stitch in the ditch around separating kind of that border area. Maybe you want to go in the ditch around some of the main star, and that's entirely personal preference. So I hope you guys like this design and that you might give it a try. Thanks so much for joining us. We hope that you have enjoyed today's designs, and be sure to join us for the next episode of Dual Process.